is LBC, leading Britain's conversation with Ask Boris. Mayor of London Boris Johnson takes your calls with Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850. This is Ask Boris on LBC.
Good morning, everybody. It's Boris Johnson here, bringing you your latest edition of Ask Boris on LBC. I'm here for the next 45 minutes to take your calls. This is your chance to put any question you like to me, and I've got my trusty help me, Mr. Nick Ferrari, here. We will do our best to answer. The numbers for you to get your questions on the air are 0345 6060 973 or email boris@lbc.co.uk. Don't forget, you can also watch us on the website in high definition, lbc.co.uk. And let us go straight away to our first caller, who is Dave in Bermondsey.
Morning, Governor.
How are you, sir?
The Poppies over in Tower of London.
Yes.
A wonderful thing. Absolutely wonderful thing.
They're fantastic.
You can't extend how long they're going to be there. It was there for a set time. And that is good enough. If everybody wants to go and see them, then they've got to make the time to go over there.
Well, listen, Dave, I totally understand what you're saying, and indeed, you know, I think the people at the Tower of London were absolutely taken aback by the scale of public reaction, the depth of people's feeling, and they made a huge effort. Go on.
I think everybody was taken aback, and I don't really agree with all the politicians jumping on the bandwagon, getting their names in the paper like they normally do with something like this. It was done with good intentions for all the fallen soldiers, and I think that's how it should be left. Well, you can't extend it because you've got the ice ring going in there, and you've got corporate events going on for Christmas time, which have all got to be set up. So your politicians coming on and saying, "Oh, we should extend it," blah blah blah, but it ain't going to happen. And I don't think it should happen.
That's right. There's another point I'd make, David, and you know, I thought it was a good idea to give them as many people as possible a chance to see it while the thing was going. And what they did was they had floodlights all night, I think, so that people could have a vigil to see it. But the whole point of it is it commemorates loss, it commemorates bereavement, and the huge sacrifice of the families of this country in the First World War. And so there should be a sense of loss when those poppies go, and you can't keep everything going forever. So I totally take that point. It would go against the spirit of the display to try to spin it out forever.
Have you been, Mr. Mayor?
I did. I wandered in. I went early one morning, and it's just mind-blowing. The reason it's so successful, I mean, everybody's been making this point, is because each poppy is distinctive, and the individual petals have been so cleverly made. They're all individual, and so for the first time in our lifetimes, in 100 years, you can actually see what 888,264 deaths looks like, what that means, what the war dead of the First World War actually amounted to, visibly, intelligibly, in front of you. And that's never happened before. And I think that's what's overwhelmed people.
What on earth do they do next year?
Well, I think that, you know, they'll come up with something. I think it was appropriate that they should produce such a spectacular commemoration in 1914, 100 years after the outbreak of the war in 2014. So it's up to them. I think I think Dave's point is about the moat is a good one. Yes. Actually, the Tower of London has now been revealed as a fantastic space. I think they will now try to think of other ways of activating that moat and getting the public to come.
Dave, thank you. Shall we move on, Mr. Mayor? Where do we go?
We are now going to Mark in Bromley.
Morning, both of you. Morning. Just wanted to find out, Boris, I'm very confused in the fact that everyone keeps bleating on, I think you included, about more cyclists and more cycle lanes and what have you.
Yeah.
But really, what any car driver will tell you is that there is a problem with small rat run type roads being cut off and all the traffic being focused on the main thoroughfare, which is a problem in itself. But I'm just trying to understand, how can we encourage more cyclists when everyone is forced on to using the same roads which were built for cars. And the second point quickly is, why do we have such a disjointed situation when it comes to the bus lanes? I remember a few years ago when you could go on anything from 10 till 7, you couldn't go into the bus lane. But after 7, you were allowed to. But you've got anytime bus lane. So if you drive in a bus lane at 4 o'clock in the morning, you're likely to get a ticket. To me, that just doesn't make any sense. I just need clarification.
Well, Mark, which is the bus lane that's particularly driving you?
Well, the one on Waterloo Bridge.
Waterloo Bridge, right? Well, if there's I don't know, I can't remember why that's. Why you can't drive with that at 4 o'clock in the morning? It seems perverse to me. I will take steps to get back to you, Mark, about why you can't drive over in the bus lane in Waterloo Bridge at 4 o'clock in the morning. We do have to keep the traffic flowing in London, and we do have to ensure that the buses can get around, and the bus lanes are a way of doing that. And if you allow too many people in bus lanes at peak times, you will stop that from happening.
Mark, stay on the line. I just want to play some of the Mayor's words back. We do have to keep the traffic flowing in central London. How does that tally with your cycle Superhighway from Tower Hill to Acton?
You're talking about it's.
I urge everyone to go to lbc.co.uk, where we see an illustration prepared by Transport for London. Something I'm going to show the Mayor now. It's a lovely colour illustration. Here we are, proposals of the route from Tower Hill to Acton. How is Tower Hill will look. And literally one carriage.
Let's get back to Mark's question. Let's go back to the
cycle.
Hang on.
We'll answer that. Then we need to address how you think that will work.
All right. Yes, but I will do that by first of all addressing Mark's question. Mark said, what are we doing? Why are we trying to encourage all these cyclists onto the main roads? You're quite right. Yeah. And what we want to do is make life safer for all road users in London, particularly for vulnerable road users such as pedestrians and cyclists. And one of the ways to do that, and the Cycle Superhighway project, by the way, has massive support in London, 80% support from the respondents so far in the consultation.
Have you spoken to Canary Wharf lately?
I have spoken to a large number of groups, and I'll come to all those issues in a minute. Oh. The priority is to have a safer London that's more pleasant to move around. That must involve keeping the traffic flowing smoothly, as Mark and all motorists want, and indeed I want. I'm a motorist as well, as I drive around. We all have the same interest in this. Now, the consultation on the East-West Cycle Superhighway, as you know, has just come to a juddering conclusion, and we will...
It's come to a conclusion?
It's on the 9th, I believe, it came to a conclusion, and...
Well, what is the conclusion?
Sorry, the consultation has ended.
Yes.
That means the period of...
Oh, it's concluded, right, so we haven't got a result yet.
We've not... What we are now doing is reflecting on the messages that we're getting, the chorus of sympathy and support that many people are offering, the very strong negative comments that have come from some of the people that you mentioned, Nick, and we're all familiar with the campaigns that are being run against this scheme. Well, what I've always said is that I want a scheme that is the best for London, and I'm a motorist as well as a cyclist, and we won't do anything that paralyses the traffic in this city. But we've got to make sure that we put in schemes that make cycling safer, and it will be a massive net...
Or just get all cars off the road then.
Massive net.
Just ban all cars.
No, it would be a massive... Well, some people do propose that, by the way. It is in several... be careful what you wish for, or there are some people around this place who would do that instead of run. I wouldn't dream of doing that. Mark actually asked a more difficult and more profound question, which was about the relationship between the main thoroughfares and the side routes, and is traffic being blocked off from being used?
And bus lanes.
He said the traffic is being funneled onto the main roads rather than being allowed to use the rat runs. And what can we do about that? And I think that is an issue. I do want to see flexible and sensible use of all roads all roads in London. But, clearly there will be many residents who don't want to see their quiet side street turned into a gigantic rat run.
So, now, I hope everyone is looking at lbc.co.uk, for there is a colour illustration of how this new route will look.
No,
and appropriately enough, it's at Tower Hill. I'm now showing it to the Mayor. That is where all the poppies are. Mr. Mayor, the bus lanes have gone.
That is
Why?
That is an illustration of the scheme that has been under consultation. It would be inappropriate and wrong for me now to.
Oh no! Don't hide behind that. Why have the bus lanes gone?
We will be producing a scheme.
So the way forward for London is for one carriageway travelling east to west by Tower Hill. One carriageway with all
Nick,
the
let me
cars,
ask you a question. Have you been lobbied? Have you been lobbied by any?
No, certainly not.
Have you?
By any who?
Any
what?
commercial interest?
No,
any
not commercial interest.
Canary Wharf?
Not
have they been on to you?
I've spoken with Canary Wharf. Not lobbied. No, let me explain. We phoned them. We phoned them. Now, I don't call that lobbying. I call that listening to the voices of London, which, Mr. Mayor, I might urge you to consider doing. For here is one of those voices. Howard Dauber, strategic advisor for the Canary Wharf Group PLC, told me this.
This is the pawn of capitalism here.
Not at all. We phoned him. He didn't phone me. We phoned him and we persuaded him to come and say this.
If it were to go ahead, I mean, we'd be prepared to actually challenge it legally, because I don't think the consultation's been done properly. We don't want to go there. That's a silly and expensive fight we don't want to have. So we're hoping that we can have an audience, get some traction with the mayor. We're talking about 11% increased congestion from this scheme and the other schemes that are already in the pipeline. 11% extra congestion by December 2016, and that's across the whole of inner London. Now, that's just going to slow everything down. It's going to stop people putting businesses in East London. It's going to make doing business in London more expensive. And we think that is too high a price to pay for a scheme where we're not actually sure what the total road safety impact of the scheme is going to be.
Well, I think actually Howard's been very reasonable there, and no, I don't think he wants to do that at all. And what we want to do is, and we've had many conversations with Canary Wharf. And I mean, if I may say so, I think there is a risk of everybody getting a little bit previous about this. What we're premature in their condemnation. What we are doing is trying to work up a scheme that we think will minimise traffic impacts but protect cyclists.
Why are you going to gate traffic outside of the central London?
You're prejudging the whole thing.
How will that work? Explain how the gating principle works.
You're prejudging the outcome of what we decide to do.
No, I'm just asking how the gating principle works.
You're assuming that that's what we're going to do, and I'm just telling you.
Well, tell me how it would work. It's a proposal that's on the table.
I tell you. I mean, to get back to the serious and sensible point that.
Well, I suggest chaining London and Tower Hill into one lane, east-west, is pretty serious stuff. To
get back to what Howard Dauber was saying,
I mean, there's no illustration here. Presumably, this is an Ed Miliband Glee rally. There's no cars on the road. That's why it works. That's why it works here. In reality, you know what this is, and I'm showing you where all the poppies are at the tower. There's 5 cars on the road. When is it ever like that, Mr. Mayor? It is ridiculous. One carriageway.
It's one of your own illustrations. It's irrelevant how many cars
Meanwhile,
there are
how
on the
do
road.
the pedestrians, coming back to this, how do the pedestrians get across from that side, from Tower Hill Tube? How do they get across there? There's a cycle path going through there. They'll be going like the clappers.
Yeah.
How will pedestrians get across?
That is an indicative CGI illustration of an early version of the scheme, and we will see where we end up.
But how do pedestrians get across the cycle superhighway?
That is the kind of question that
you don't know the answer to.
But we're now.
This doesn't prejudice you to tell me how it works. How does a pedestrian cross the cycle superhighway?
There is in the same way the pedestrian crosses the road. For heaven's sake, by means of their feet and their legs. I mean, that's what.
So there will be stops.
That's what pedestrians do.
There will be traffic lights, pedestrian lights.
Look, Nick, I don't want.
You don't know.
I don't know. I don't want to get drawn into discussion of the detail of this scheme because it's not appropriate to do so. And we are consulting. The consultation is now over, but we are now working up our response. And there will be a scheme that will do great things for London. Making cycling safer carries overwhelming public support.
All right.
And we've got to do it. And
when we last spoke,
can I just remind you, in the last 6 months alone, one of the places that we're trying to address on this east-west cycle superhighway, we've had 2 fatalities for cyclists. And many times you and I have sat together in this studio and we've talked about what can be done to make cycling safer. And there has been huge public demand to do this.
You have to balance the interests of all road users, Mr. Mayor.
Of course we do. And that's exactly what we're trying to do.
You're not here just for cyclists.
No.
Tragic as those 2 loss of lives are.
No, we're not. And as I said earlier on, I'm a
Those motorists are paying taxes.
Motorist.
They're voters. They keep this city going. They're the plumbers. They're the delivery men. They're the ambulance drivers. They're the firemen. They're everybody. And they'll be stuck in one lane.
No.
Well, they will. I point to you again. How's a fire engine going through there?
That is, we are going to produce a cycle scheme, an east-west cycle superhighway. That will be in the interests of the whole of the city.
Lastly, when we last clashed on this,
and really, I just think obviously it is in people are entitled to defend their interests, but they shouldn't I think get alarmed prematurely. We do not want to, and I've seen the figures that Howard Dorber talks about, and he's actually raising very sensible concerns about the overall volume of traffic and congestion in London. Now,
of central London,
what you need to do,
Boris Johnson legacy,
what we are going to need
like
to do,
Moscow,
what we are going to need to do,
cars held back.
What we are going to need to do, just stop frothing a minute and just listen for a second. What we're going to need to do is come up with some. For instance, there's going to be a 45% increase in white vans dropping internet goods around just in the next 10 years. There's a huge pressure on our road system.
Well, how are they going to get through?
We are going to need to look at more road space, and I think what the Prime Minister is suggesting for the country as a whole is right for London too. I think it's time. Listen, just stop it and listen. What we're going to need to do is what they've done in Stockholm and in Brussels and in Boston, and to look at urban tunnelling. And if you basically completed the South Circular in the way that they failed to do in the 1960s with a tunnel.
Great idea.
If you did it from White City right the way through to Highbury Corner virtually, or north of Highbury Corner, and then down. You can see what I'm going. You're going all the way along the east-west. Were
you swinging around South Circular or North Circular?
You do both. You do.
I see.
You do an inner orbital, and that way you take about 20% of congestion.
Well, like Brussels, you just keep going round and round underneath.
20% of congestion out of London, and
isn't that a better idea?
You've got to do all these things.
So we are going to tunnel.
You've got to do all these things, and. Yeah, TfL is now working these plans up. We told them, obviously. I think they'd be self-financing.
Told them? Why?
Because you've got to pay for this stuff, Nick. This stuff you just money doesn't grow on trees.
How are the cyclists going to pay for that 50 million? Then tell me how they're going to pay for this cycle superhighway.
As you know, we've got
to pay for it.
We've got a substantial cycling budget of 913 million.
Yeah, but how will the individual motorists will pay for these tunnels? Right, I get it. Fine, tolling. How will these will be cycle tolls? Will they?
No.
What a surprise!
They won't.
What a surprise!
Well, I thought you'd taken up cycling.
I love cycling. I love cycling.
I thought you were in favour of safe cycling.
And I am totally in favour of safe cycling.
I must say, I think that you will love this east-west cycle superhighway.
Lastly, when we last clashed on
this, will love it, and you will love it whether you are on a bicycle or whether you were in a car.
Well, I'm a bit worried about pedestrians.
No, and we will make sure that pedestrians are amply.
When we last spoke, you said that the leader of Westminster Council, Councillor Philippa Rowe, was fully behind that. Fully behind this.
That's exactly right. That's certainly.
You're telling me she's wholly, 100% and fully behind
that. What she said was that she was totally behind the principle of an east-west cycle superhighway. Let's be fair. What she may have doubts about is indeed
considerable doubts.
Those were not. She didn't voice them to me. I have to be fair.
You're not aware of the doubts of the leader of Westminster Council.
I can only
you are
give my memory of the conversation in which she was very supportive of the principle of an east-west cycle superhighway. I think she said something like there might be a few wrinkles we have to sort out, or something like that. And that is indeed what we are doing. Oh. And if you will, you can continue to make the mountains out of these molehills if you so choose. We will not be gating traffic. We will not be creating.
Well, that's what I heard on the weekend.
Well, of course, there are lots of people who have been stoked into states of considerable anxiety by a very, very effective lobbying campaign. I admire the success of that lobbying campaign, but all I want to tell you is that the fears are overdone.
Right. We must
the fears are overdone.
We have other calls.
Can we go now to Stan in Kingsway?
You're on the radio, Stan.
How are you doing? My question is, it's more about the pollution, because if there's less traffic in London than there's been in the last 11 years, and the traffic in London is more fuel efficient and less polluting, why are the levels, and notice what the actual words I'm using here, Boris, nitrous oxide, at key junctions in London now at catastrophic heights.
Well, Stan, they're not. Stan,
no,
actually,
they are.
well,
yeah, nitrous dioxide. Are you listening to me?
I am listening to you, Stan.
Nitrous dioxide is at catastrophic levels. It's the other poisonous gases that are starting to reduce. And also that you say that cyclists account for 24% of the traffic, but this was taken on a 2-hour peak morning figure in July, and not over 24 hours. Yeah. And also, let's not forget that if you create more and more cycle lanes and less roads for the cars to use, pollution is going to go up tenfold. And just out of interest, Nick, you've got to ask him, how many left and right turns are there on the embankment? Because you've got to go from Tower Hill all the way to Parliament Square before you can get off of it.
You are. Okay, Stan. Okay.
One other thing.
Okay.
Let's not
briefly,
forget,
Stan. Briefly. Yeah, go on.
Let's not forget the proposed pedestrianisation of Oxford Street.
Yes.
Yeah, so what you should be doing...
That's not happening, Stan. There is no support for the pedestrianisation of Oxford Street,
but Boris, I'm not being funny. How can anyone believe you? You've lied to the firemen, you've lied to the underground people, you lied to everyone that you're coming in contact with. At the end of the day, what you should be actually trying to do is, why not just cordon off all the embankment for a month period with bollards and see how much traffic chaos it causes without spending £50 million?
Well, you're wrong about nitrous oxide, Stan. And if you'd bothered to study any of the details, you'd see that actually it's down, emissions of NOx are down 20% in London over the last 6 or 7 years. And one thing we are doing is putting in cleaner, greener vehicles across the city. And as you know, we're going for an ultra-low emission zone in the centre of the city, which will radically reduce emissions and increase the cleanliness of our air. And I think that's a fantastic thing.
What about the left and right turns on the embankment that Stan mentioned?
Well, again, these are matters that are for.
There's extraordinary opposition to this, Mr. Mayor, isn't there?
Well, if I may say so, there are lots of concerns that I think are being unnecessarily flammed up. And, I can understand people's anxiety about any change. People are always opposed to change, but sometimes you've got to do things, big and difficult things that are in the long-term interests of the city. And I think to make cycling safer, to produce proper cycling lanes for London is a very worthwhile objective.
Let's move on to other calls. Stan, thank you.
Thank you, Stan.
Where do we go?
Let's go to Gillian in Belsize Park.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning, Gillian.
Thank you for keeping Mr. Ferrari intact and letting you have a word in edgeways. I'm enjoying this debate, but I'm afraid I'm a bit cross with you. You've let me down badly. I want to know why on earth are you charging for fireworks for New Year's Eve? How are you going to cordon the sky off? And this isn't the British way. Thousands of people watch that on TV, including me in glorious Primrose Hill from my view. I love it.
Yes, but of course you're. I see.
How much are you going to be charging for attendance at the New Year's Eve fireworks? Stay on the line, Gillian. How much will you be charging for attendance at the New Year's Eve fireworks, Mr. Mayor?
I believe it's £10.
It's £10.
And
how have you come to that charge?
The reason for doing the charge, I'm afraid, is almost entirely absorbed by the cost of putting in the constraints. That we simply have to do something. Nick, and Gillian, the crowds at the fireworks have grown to enormous sizes.
What sort of numbers are we talking about?
In the last few years, I think we had about 500,000 people last year. And
how many tickets will be made available?
And what I can tell you is that there are 100,000 tickets available. They are selling very well, though there are still plenty left, and the objective is quite simply. Well,
I bet there are.
Well, that's by way of advertisement.
No, you're trying to put people off coming.
Yes. Well, how do you answer that?
Yeah,
Mr.
we
Mayor?
are. I'm afraid to say yes.
You are. Yes, but you don't want people to come.
No, we do want people to come. But
you just said you're trying to put people off coming.
We don't want people to come.
By putting in. Sorry to cut in. I didn't realise I was still live. I was muttering away to myself.
You're right. We don't. Well, I don't know why you're so furious if you can watch them from Primrose Hill anyway.
No, No, that's not the attitude, Boris. Come on. This is not the British way. There are people out of work that pay their taxes, that enjoy coming for a free night out. You've given us the transport there. Brilliant, New Year's Eve. Well, you should have thought that through. It's going to be popular. It's not rocket science. People want to come. They want to party. They've had a frigging hard year. Some people like me in their 50s are out of work and looking for things and needs a freebie, and we enjoy that. And there you are, Australia and all these other countries. Do they charge?
Many of them do. Yes, many of them do. And the reason is that I've been advised by the police, by the ambulance service, by the fire brigades, that unless we did something, we were at serious risk of having having crushes.
Why charge? Exactly. You can take people and guide people to other areas, right? You can cordon them off. We're British. We know how to organise things.
No, because
cordon them off to other areas.
Well, that's exactly what we're doing. That's exactly what we're doing.
No, without charging, Boris, 10 quid. Come on. What do you think a family's going to chalk up for New Year's Eve? It's already a rip-off in every bloody restaurant you go to. Yeah, and now you're going to put that on top of it.
You're a Christmas Grinch.
All right, but I have to accept the criticism. But what we're trying to, because that's the most effective way
to keep people away,
of constraining the numbers, and we want a smaller crowd in the centre, because there is a very serious risk of people being crushed in a hazel, in a way that
no one would want that,
which nobody could possibly want.
But when you go to other firework displays, say on the big one on Blackheath, the first people who get there can see it, the others can't get close enough, and they just turn away. There's no charge made to go and watch it.
Well, you should see the CCTV and the footage of people trying to get off those bridges, and ambulances couldn't move. There was absolute chaos for a very long time, and the advice from the police was that we simply had to do something. This is what we've come up with. I'm sorry if it's what's done in many other cities. Obviously, Gillian, I'm sorry if you think I'm the Grinch who stole Christmas. But what can I do? I still think many people will enjoy it, and the fireworks, as Gillian rightly points out, will still be visible from many places in London, absolutely free, gratis, and for nothing, particularly from Primrose Hill. Gillian, John in Devon. I hope you're in a better mood than everybody else.
Good morning.
This morning. Yeah, morning.
How's your kippers, all right?
The kippers. I haven't go on.
Anyway, Grant Chaps called Mark Reckless a liar.
Right.
Accused him of wasting public money. Yesterday in the Parliament was absolutely a fiasco.
Yes.
A complete waste of public money. The Prime Minister promised Parliament a vote on a European arrest warrant, and he renegated on his promise again. How can he be trusted?
Well, frankly,
How can he ever be trusted?
As far as I understand the matter, they were voting on a package of things which included the arrest warrant. There seems to have been some parliamentary shenanigans, which I have to confess to you, John, I haven't followed in detail.
They promised an individual vote for MPs. That was not forthcoming. In the view of Speaker John Bercow, it was this. No, we've not got Bercow. We hoped we'd have Bercow ready for you.
Bercow?
How can we possibly take any trust now, any confidence? David Cameron promised the MPs a vote on the EAW. It didn't happen. How can we trust them with a vote on Europe?
Wait a minute. Did they or did they not have a vote? They must have had a vote on some sort of paving motion. If the rebels had felt so
on an entire package,
if the rebels had felt so strongly about it, they could have voted against the whole thing. I don't.
Well,
to be honest,
they did. 37 did. He won by just 9 votes. He had to go running back in his white tie and tails to vote.
Well, it sounds like a sounds like a dramatic moment in Parliament. It sounds like our parliamentary democracy is in rude health.
It sounds like
democracy is working.
It sounds to me like a red-faced, toe-curling moment of embarrassment for a Prime Minister clinging on, Mr. Mayor.
Well, it sounds to me like a very narrow vote on an issue that many people take to very seriously, and I'm sure lots of good arguments were made either side. I'm afraid I didn't happen to hear those arguments.
If he can't deliver on the promise of a vote over a European arrest warrant, how could he ever hope to deliver on a promise regarding a vote concerning Europe?
Well,
why should we believe him?
There was a vote last night about
not on the EAWs.
There was obviously. Well, you just said there was a very close vote.
That was on the whole package of 34 measures in which the EAWs were included. It was specifically that there would be a single vote on the EAW. It did not transpire. How can we possibly trust him?
Well, I think the Prime Minister means what he says, and
well, he didn't.
By the way, no, wait a minute. I'm not. It's not. Let's go back to look at the premise of your argument, which was that the Prime Minister made some promise to have a specific vote that night on the European arrest warrant. I mean, maybe you've got the chapter and verse there of what he said, but it seems to me that there was a vote on the European arrest warrant in the sense it was vote. You've said that the Prime Minister lied, or our caller John has said that the Prime Minister.
Well, he will now play you.
Let's see what. I mean, did he actually say that there would be an individual vote on the European arrest warrant?
Someone who's far better versed in the parliamentary procedure than I, John Burker.
I think most of us think that a commitment made is a commitment that should be honoured, and we should try to operate according to sensible standards rather than trying to slip things through some sort of artifice.
Well, look, you've said that the question is, did the Prime Minister promise an individual vote on the European arrest warrant rather than bundling it up into a slightly more attractive package of other things in the hope of sneaking it through? I don't know what he promised about an individual vote on the European arrest warrant.
How can we trust him in the future?
I'm not certain that he has broken his word, because you've yet to produce for me the ipsissima verba of the Prime Minister on this subject. And let's hear it. Produce it. What did he actually say? As far as I can see, there was a vote
to give MPs a vote on the warrant before this crucial by-election.
Well, they have voted on the warrant
individually, specifically.
Well, I don't look. This is
All right.
This is where did he say the thing?
This is great leadership, is it, Mr. Mayor?
I think that the MPs have had a vote on this blooming arrest warrant, and they could have voted against it if they chose. As far as I understand, it was a very close vote. And by the way, look, on the European arrest warrant, I can see the arguments. I can see the arguments both ways. I think it's a very difficult business, and I think the thing's been improved.
Jacob Rees-Mogg says it's an abuse of parliamentary procedure and it is the way of tyranny.
Well, obviously I wasn't in the House last night. I haven't studied exactly what happened, but my impression is that there was a vote on the overall package of measures. Whether there was some subterfuge or not, I simply don't know.
Bill Cash, it is tainted with chicanery. It is not the way Parliament should be treated.
Well,
pretty ugly, isn't it?
If these guys had wanted to vote against the European arrest warrant, and it was such a matter of principle for them, they could have thrown out the whole thing. That's what it seems.
More from
to
London
me.
Mayor Boris Johnson after the news here.
I wasn't in Parliament last night.
Well, it was only a matter of time, of course, Mr. Mayor, before you'll join in those happy proceedings. Yeah. You're listening to Ask Boris here on LBC 9:32. Time for the news.
Okay,
it is Ask Boris.
It's Ask Boris here.
And could I ask you one question?
Well, I thought we were going to go to one of our callers.
Yes, you are. We're going there next. Would you go on Gogglebox?
What is Gogglebox? Forgive me. We're going. Let's get it. Whilst I try and work out.
Would you go on Gogglebox?
Would I go on Gogglebox? Is a television, right? That's an old-fashioned word for a television. What is Gogglebox?
Gogglebox is this new phenomenon that is sweeping British television, where you actually watch people watching television in the privacy of their own homes.
Oh, right.
And it's a wide cast of people. It's like a soap, effectively.
Oh, yeah, like the royal family.
Very much so. Nigel Farage is going on Gogglebox. He's going to sit with a rich, posh couple down in Kent and watch the telly. Would you ever, now that you've...
I don't watch much TV. That's what
but that's the joy. You sit there and you opine on Simon Cowell or Dad's Army or
it's a sort of running commentary on the
programmes you watch.
Fantastic. Well, I don't know.
Strictly Come Dancing.
Perhaps. But in the meantime, I think we need to serve the interests of the people of London by getting on to Ian in Claygate. Come on. Where's Ian? Maybe I'll do it.
Morning, Boris. How you doing? You all right?
I'm very good. How are you, Ian?
Fantastic. I love listening to you. I think you're great.
You're very kind. We've had a very tough morning so far. Everybody's in a very bad mood, and Ferrari is in an absolute
I'm the
rage.
ringleader. Yeah.
Ferrari is in a rage about this cycle superhighway, which is going to be fine. We're going to sort it out. Ian, can you just help me, get Ferrari off the edge, off the parapet? He wants to hurl himself off, and just calm him down.
Boris, very quickly. Well, in fact, I've got one big question and then just a comment. The cycle superhighway is a shocking idea. You should scrap that straight away. Anyway, right, what I would say is, with the
that went well.
Thank you. With the inquiry coming through and being proved that the Heathrow expansion and the Gatwick expansion are now going to cost billions.
Yes.
Are you now... Well, it's all going to cost the same amount of money no matter where you do it. Are you going to resurrect Boris Island?
Yeah, Boris Island.
It
is. It's the right idea for the long term.
Well, it's not, is it? The Davis report has ruled it out.
Before the hysterical Nick comes in with his usual mantra of gloom and doom, let's just look at what's happening this morning. This is very interesting because the Howard Davis and his team are basically admitting that not only will Heathrow be an environmental catastrophe with huge adverse impacts in the west of London for vehicular pollution, for noise pollution, but also that it will cost a huge amount more than expected. And I think he's been on the radio this morning admitting that the numbers are going to be wildly higher than people had thought. And all that being so, and given the disaster that would inevitably follow the attempt to create a third runway and the hideous environmental consequences, I think that people will look again at long-term solutions. And I know that in government this is what they are thinking. They're starting to think, look, in the end this is a great country. We've got to compete long-term. We've got real problems in trying to build either at Heathrow or indeed at Gatwick. And I don't think by any means that the story is over. I really don't.
Let's hit the response.
Sometimes you can't just build on something that's already there. You've got to start from scratch. And also, isn't there a couple of £1 billion theme park being built down that way on the Swanscombe Peninsula as well? So, you're going to have something like Disneyland being built in Kent. Well, why? It just makes more sense to take all of the potential chaos away from an over heavily populated area in a part of the country where there are just too many people anyway, condensed into one area, and just spread it over a little bit, and spread the love that we feel in the southeast.
Yeah, and that's the way, by the way, to deal with London's massive housing need, because if you put in the transport links to that part of the Thames Gateway area,
never going to happen, Mr.
Then you will be able to build the hundreds of thousands of homes that London needs, and that is the way forward. That was an area that's gone into post-industrial decay and could be revitalised.
It was reported this morning you've offered support to the Gatwick proposal.
No, absolutely.
You don't see the merit of Gatwick.
Absolutely not. My argument remains that I think Gatwick doesn't answer the exam question. It's a what they would try to do is, the worst option, by the way, would be to say, well, let's build a runway at Gatwick in the short term, then a third runway at Heathrow in the long term, which would be a totally chaotic solution. And that that's why I think the arguments will swing round the other way. We're going now to Peter in Wandsworth.
Good morning, Mr. Johnson.
Morning,
How
Peter.
are you?
I'm very well, thank you, sir.
Good. I was on the show last week, actually, talking about a cycle safety system that I've created called Cycle Alert.
Oh, right.
That's right.
And you're probably aware of it. Well, I know you're aware of it.
Right.
Anyway, we were discussing...
How do you know the Mayor is aware of it, Peter?
Because certain Assembly members have put the question to him.
And
what would that question be?
Just remind me how it works, Peter, before Mr. Ferrari begins his tormenting of me. Well, how does it work? How does the Cycle Alert system work?
It's a two-part system. There's a small tag that lives on the cycle, which sends out a message to wireless sensors which live around the vehicle that alerts the driver, the HGV or bus, as to the cyclist present when it enters the safety zone.
Yeah. Well, I think that is the germ of a very positive idea, and what we're trying to do, as you know, with HGVs, is to create a safer lorry zone. And we are going to do it. Next year there will be a safer lorry zone in the whole of central London, and it will mean that you can't come in unless your HGV, unless your vehicle has proper sidebars, has proper Fresnel lens mirrors, has ways of detecting.
What about these beepers or these monitors?
And ways of alerting the rest of the road to what
seems to be what Peter's suggesting.
to what the lorry is doing. Many of the best lorries now also have sensors, as some cars do now, telling you whether you're coming close to something. I'm not certain that we're making that part of the stipulations for the safer lorry zone, but obviously we could look at that.
Peter, have you sent a proposal to the Mayor's office?
We have. I've written to the Mayor as well, and the first proposal was, of course, is my offer to fit all London hire cycles for free. And
all the Barclays or Boris bikes free?
All the
how did the Mayor respond to that?
Well, it's been silent on that point.
When did you send the letter? When did you send the letter?
Well, we've been communicating with the Mayor and TfL for a good 18 months.
No, but when did you send the letter offering the free monitors?
I must confess, I haven't seen this letter.
15 months ago, Mr. Mayor.
It's not. I must.
So you have an offer of free monitors on the Barclays or Boris bikes 15 months ago, and nobody replies.
It may be.
Why might that be?
It may be that the practicalities of the scheme do not immediately commend themselves. Well, I think what Peter said, he hasn't got a reply from me personally. I wasn't clear that TfL hadn't replied. Peter, are TfL talking to?
Serco, the company that maintain Boris bikes, I first went to see them 2 years ago, and they're fully supportive of the scheme and my safety technology. Oh, yeah. And we actually designed safety technology to fit inside the Boris bike specifically for Boris bikes.
I've got to tell you, Peter, I haven't personally seen this proposal yet. If you're not getting much progress with TfL on your sensors, are you getting any? Who's your contact at TfL for this?
Well, we are being trialled with TR Transport Research Laboratory through.
Well, that sounds like. Come on, then. Well, that sounds pretty good. You're being trialled. We can't just rush out and do. You've got to trial it. We can't. What would you say, Nick? If I just put a cycle superhighway down without even testing people's opinion?
I'd say that's
Boris. We've been trialing for a year now, and we've had.
Right. Well, I sense you need to leave more details.
I think what I'll do is obviously, Peter, having heard your proposal again, I will, or having understood it slightly better now, I will take it up with TfL and see where they are on it. If they think it's practicable and it can be put in quite cheaply, then let's have a look at it. I mean, it sounds, I have to say, just instinctively, it sounds quite elaborate and quite expensive, but maybe there's something in it. There's something in it.
Let's get another call. We've got time for a couple more.
Let's go to Matt in Ewell.
Yeah, hiya, Boris.
How are you?
I just want to know, how comes your vanity project route masters will be exempt from the ultra-low emission zone, while London taxi drivers will have to fork out 50 grand to be a guinea pig for an electric cab that's not even been built or tested yet?
Well, just on what's going to happen with cabs, Matt, we are, as you know, we are going to be making sure that taxi drivers receive very substantial subsidies, funds to help them make the switch.
Though, Boris?
That we will make sure that taxi drivers are not out of pocket, so that they are able.
How much was the question?
How much though, Boris?
We will make sure. I'm not giving you a figure now, but we will make sure.
Why can't you give me a
figure? Why not, Boris? Because it's going to cost at least 50 grand to drive one of these electric cabs.
And we will make sure that taxi drivers are helped.
What are you going to do? Give every cab driver £50,000?
To make sure that this is the most economical way of doing it. This won't come in until
how much is a fair question?
How much, please, Boris?
We will make sure that it's an economical deal for you. And
figures, please, Boris.
And
not waffle.
Well, I'm not going to give you figures, if you'll forgive me, because we can't at this stage give you the figures. And what we will, however, do is make sure that you will be protected from the impact of the scheme. And,
how?
And
yeah.
By cash.
And by the way, yes. And by the way,
why your route masters exempt?
And by the way, it is the right thing to do. I just had a caller earlier on. I can't remember which one. He was, I think, possibly another taxi driver.
Was it Stan in Kingsway?
Stan in Kingsway, who was in a rage about air pollution. Do you remember, Matt? You were doing when you were listening when Stan, perhaps he's sitting next to you. When Stan,
no, he's not. I'm at home actually.
Stan in Kingsway was in a total rage about about air pollution, if you remember, and he said, why was it so bad, and what was I doing about it? And this is part of the solution. Londoners want cleaner air. Yep. We all deserve cleaner air. We've got 4,000 people a year who die prematurely as a result of poor air quality in London. And what we're trying to do, Matt, and we will spend very substantial sums of money to help taxi drivers to have cleaner vehicles. And the saving will be felt by the drivers over the lifetime of the vehicle, because the costs of running it, it will be so much lower. You won't have to pay so much for fuel. I'm sorry I can't give you the figures this morning, Matt. It would simply be wrong of me, because we don't yet have them.
We come back, we almost finished we were talking about that EAW vote, and you wanted to hear specifically what David Cameron said. This is not David Cameron who starts, but he does get involved.
A vital tool that has helped to bring murderers, rapists and paedophiles to justice is a European arrest warrant. Why is he delaying having a vote on it?
I'm not delaying having a vote on it. There will be a vote on it.
There has been a vote on it. There has been a vote on it, and I think the Prime Minister's promise has been fulfilled. He's given people a vote on this thing, and as I said earlier on, if they'd wanted to vote against it, they could have done.
Lastly, as plans for the first new grammar school in more than 20 years have been revived by England's largest selective education authority, Kent County Council. This is down in Sevenoaks. Yeah. And there is one going on in Theresa May's constituency as well, the Home Secretary. What's your view on grammar schools?
I'm pro. Always have been. I think that they're a very important part of the mix in our educational system. I think that they are... they work very well in many areas, and they should be supported. And I think that the decision to get rid of them was a real tragedy for this country.
David Cameron says they're unpopular with parents. His words. No, I don't know.
That maybe they are in some cases, but they have been a great mobiliser and liberator of people.
You want them back? You'd bring them back.
I think whether you bring back schools called grammar schools with academic selection, brutal academic selection at 11, maybe you don't. I think you could do is have a greater degree of academic competition, academic selection at various stages in a child's development, and there are ways of doing that, I think, which wouldn't be hurtful to people, which wouldn't make them feel like failures, but which would spur competition and get better performance out of our schools. And so the principle of academic selection is, I'm afraid, not one that we should jettison. And I think there are plenty of fee-paying schools in this country that run absolutely ruthless policies of academic selection.
So David Cameron's wrong on this as well.
Academic selection. Well, no, what he's saying is he doesn't want a return of the.
Well, no, he says they're unpopular with parents. Where does he get that from?
Again, I think you'd need to produce the quotes that come on, give me the.
If you've enjoyed the show, you'll love the book.
You did this last time.
Check this book out for your Christmas stocking. The Churchill Factor. It's by Boris Johnson. How one man made history. It's out now. Done quite well, hasn't it, Mr. Mayor?
I'm very proud to say it's been in the Amazon top 10 for about 3 weeks or something.
You've got a hit on your hands.
Thank
you for appearing on Ask Boris.
Thank you for. What do you mean?
I'm very grateful.
On LBC. Thank you. I'm